sorors on the call. Again, we are excited to see you, and I'm excited to get started and introduce our panelists. So we're going to have Alicia from the Pursuing the Esquires team to go ahead and do the introduction.
Thank you, Danielle. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our D9 Sisters in the Law panel. We'll be discussing how to utilize your D9 membership in the legal field. But before we begin, please do not forget to follow us on Instagram at Pursuing ESQ and join us next Wednesday for our fraternity panel. So I'm going to turn it over to our founder, Ms. Danielle, to introduce the panelists.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Danielle Hardy. I am the founder of Pursuing the Esquire and a proud member of Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I am extremely excited to host you all tonight on our Sisters in Law panel. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with our introductions. So first, representing Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, we have our first attorney, Kelly Muse Kirkland. Kelly Muse is the chief of the Hate Crimes Bureau at the Kings County District Attorney's Office in Brooklyn, New York. Kelly studied political science at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, where she received her Bachelor's of Arts degree in 1999. Upon graduating from college, Kelly worked at the State of Maryland Department of Juvenile Justice as a probation officer, where she supervised youth who were placed on probation by the courts or sentenced to placement facilities such as detention centers and group homes. In the fall of 2000, Kelly entered the City University School of Law, where she appeared in the Queens County Criminal Court to defend clients accused of misdemeanors and violations of the New York Penal Law. After graduating from law school in May 2003, Kelly joined the Nassau County Attorney's Office as the Deputy County Attorney, where she prosecuted juvenile offenders. In her position, Kelly litigated over 60 cases, as well as violations of probation, dispositional, and preliminary hearings. In her first year, Kelly received the Rookie of the Year award for her outstanding performance and dedication to serving the county of Nassau. Kelly also represented the office as a member of the Nassau County Gang Task Force. In 2006, Kelly changed her focus from juveniles to adults when she began working as an assistant district attorney at the Kings County District Attorney's Office. Kelly was assigned to criminal court before being assigned to indict cases in the Grand Jury Bureau. Kelly was then assigned to the Gray Zone Trial Bureau as a senior trial attorney, where she has prosecuted violent crimes in Borough Park, Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, Williamsburg, and Greenpoint. In 2011, Kelly transferred to the Office of the Special Narcotics Prosecutor, where she prosecuted individuals charged with felony-level drug offenses throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City. In 2013, Kelly returned to the Kings County District Attorney's Office Gang Bureau, where she prosecuted gang members for violent offenses. In April of 2015, Kelly was promoted to the Civil Rights Bureau and Hate Crimes Unit, where she investigated and prosecuted crimes committed by the members of law enforcement against civilians, as well as hate crimes. In December of 2018, Kelly was promoted to the chief of the newly formed Hate Crimes Bureau, which investigates and prosecutes crimes motivated by victims' race, religion, religious practice, ethnicity, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, age, or disability. Welcome, Kelly. Next, we will introduce, representing Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Lauren Burke. Lauren is an intellectual property attorney who currently serves as trademark counsel for Authentic Brands Group, LLC, a brand development and licensing company. Prior to this role, Lauren was a trademark examining attorney at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. She also gained experience in intellectual property law as an associate at K&L Gates LLP and a boutique intellectual property firm. Lauren graduated from the University of Virginia with a BA in psychology and earned her JD at Howard University School of Law. Most recently, she received an LLM degree in law and government at American University, where she specialized in intellectual property and information policy. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, Danielle.
Next up, representing Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated is Maya Day. Maya is an associate attorney at Bruns, Brennan, and Barry PC, where she drafts talent and above-the-line personnel agreements for production companies such as Bronze Studios, Jax Media, and A24. Maya has served as counsel for various television series and films, most recently Black Lady Sketch Show, Hamilton Live, Tiger King, Harriet, and Desus and Mero. Maya holds a BA from the George Washington University and a JD from Howard University School of Law. During her time at Howard Law, she served as a student attorney in the Intellectual Property Clinic with a concentration in trademark law, and served as the program coordinator for the Howard Law Sports and Entertainment Law Student Association. She also interned at BET, the FCC, and the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Maya is a proud Spring 12 initiate of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and is currently a member of the Omicron Phi Theta chapter located in Washington, DC. Welcome, Maya.
Hi, everyone.
And lastly, representing Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated is Erin Darden. Erin is a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For undergrad, she attended Shippensburg University, where she made one of the best decisions, and she became a member of the last created but best designed Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, and obtained a Bachelor of Science in Political Science with a minor in Criminal Justice. After undergrad, she worked as a paralegal for a few years before she went on to attend North Carolina Central University School of Law. She was the president of the Sports and Entertainment Law Society, senior editor of the North Carolina Central Law Review, and has 6 internship positions while graduating cum laude. Erin began her legal career as an honors attorney with the U.S. Department of Justice Tax Division. As a federal trial attorney, she represented the United States and the IRS in the federal district court and bankruptcy court while handling all aspects of her cases. After 4 years, Erin recently joined the Parlator Law Group, a cloud-based law firm that provides top legal services to clients in a smarter way. Erin is committed to turning passions into thriving businesses and focuses her practice on assisting entrepreneurs with small business formation and development, trademark law, and civil litigation. Erin is a small business owner herself. She is a certified law coach, life coach, and through a series of one-on-one calls and workshops, she helps women raise their self-awareness to develop healthy relationships, make themselves a priority, and get what they want out of both business and life. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Now we're gonna get started and we're gonna talk to our panelists with some really great conversation for tonight that we hope that will be very helpful to you as viewers. And most of our viewers, as you know, if you've been tuning in, are law students or those aspiring to become a law student. And so we're excited to have you, as well as everyone who's here to support their sororities. We have fraternity members on the line. It's great to see D9 support across the board. So I'm gonna ask the whole panel this question, and if we could start with Kelly, to just let everyone know, why did you go to law school?
So I went to law school. First of all, I always knew I wanted to be an attorney, probably since I was 8 years old. Somehow or another, my mother jammed that into my head, and so it became so. But along the way, in my journey to becoming an attorney, I was able to, intern at various places, including the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. So I'll say why it is that I became a prosecutor, more so why I became an attorney. I always knew I wanted to be an attorney. I always had the gift of gab, someone who wanted to be in a courtroom and, litigate cases and things of that nature. But why I wanted to be a prosecutor specifically is because I recognize that the prosecutor has the ability to effectuate change in the courtroom. The prosecutor has the ability to say yes or no and investigate charges and investigate individuals and either do the right thing or do the wrong thing. And I've always realized that, or I realized very early on in my law school career, that it was the prosecutor who had the power to, look at a case and determine whether or not there was probable cause from the beginning, look at a case, determine whether or not, the witnesses seemed credible, whether or not the witnesses and the police officers' versions of what happened lined up. And you even have the ability at that point as a prosecutor to determine what charges should be made and what you recommend to the judge in terms of sentencing, whether it's incarceration or some type of alternative to incarceration. And so for me, it was all about, being in public service. I went to the City University of New York School of Law, which is a public interest law school. And there, they drilled in us, serving the public and things of that nature. So I knew that the best way for me to serve the public with my skills in terms of, someone who wanted to be a litigator, being in a courtroom, being able to write as well, that my talents would be best served at a district attorney's office. And so I've been doing that ever since. I never intended to be at the office or be a prosecutor for as long as I have been, but it's been quite rewarding to do this type of work. And I actually can't see myself doing very much of anything else.
Well, would you say it's important to be passionate about what you do?
It's very and I mean, there's a saying that says if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? So it's very important to, know that on Sunday, when you're getting ready to lay your head on a pillow, that you're beginning a new week and that your week is going to be fulfilled. If you're going to work every day, I know people who go to work every day and they absolutely positively hate their jobs. You hate your job, then it's going to feel like work. Every hour is going to feel like 12 hours to you. And it's very important to know that what you're doing matters. For me, it's important to know that what I do matters. I mean, anybody could, go out and make a lot of money. But for me, it was about, enjoying what I do and having an impact on the community and being able to look at myself every day and, having a good time at work as well. It's good. It's important to be able to get along with your colleagues. It's important to know that, you're bringing up someone behind you to make a difference in someone's life. So all of that is important in my life, in my mind. So being passionate, I mean, there's not a conversation that I can have about what I do without passion. So it's absolutely paramount.
That's fantastic. I can tell that you're very passionate about your job. It's fantastic. Lauren, can you share with us why you went to law school?
Sure. Similar to Kelly, I knew early on that I had an interest in the law. And I also had a few influences, also including my mother. And although I know now that television doesn't always accurately portray what the life of a lawyer is like, there were several lawyer shows that I really enjoyed. And I was intrigued by how the attorneys articulated themselves and formed arguments. I went on to get my first legal job in high school. And I worked with a solo practitioner who really allowed me to be hands-on with a lot of the work. And so with all of that, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and also help people and go to law school.
Can you share with us some of the shows that were inspirational for you?
Specifically The Practice. It's now has reruns on Hulu, but that was the main one that I used to watch.
Nice. I'm sure most of our viewers are familiar with shows such as Law and Order or How to Get Away with Murder. And often we get the question of, is it just like what we see on TV? And it absolutely is not.
No, not at all.
Maya, can we have you share next?
Sure. For me, I would say that the law kind of has always been in my life. My father is a retired now police officer. And so I was exposed to the law very early, but knew I didn't want to be a police officer. So the people around me, my mentors, were all judges, attorneys, and those people were people that I looked up to. So I figured that since I had an interest in arguments, forming arguments, and things like that, law school would be a great choice. So I decided that fairly early. But I'm also, hence why I went into entertainment, a big television person. So I owe a lot of my choices to Joan Carroll Clayton, Claire Huxtable, and Maxine Shaw, and seeing great women on television who played attorneys. And I really wanted to be, honestly, like most of them growing up with the family and all that great stuff. So I owe that to them too.
Absolutely. I am a huge Living Singles fan. So Vaccine Shaw, attorney at law, was definitely someone that I looked to as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Maya. If we could have Erin please share.
So I don't know if my story is as heartfelt as everybody else. I get this question all the time. I was a business major in undergrad, and I woke up one day and said, I'm going to go to law school. I don't really know where the idea came from. I just like popped into my head. And the more I thought about it, the more it sounded like a good idea. And I thought that I could use this platform to give back and contribute to my community. At that time, I did not know how it would enable me to do that, but that was kind of my thought. Random thought, go to law school and then use that platform to help people.
I think that's fantastic because I think as we've all discovered over these last few weeks of the panels, that everyone's inspiration and time that they discovered that they wanted to go to law school was different. Where some, they knew from a child, some got into college, had a really good professor or a teacher and was inspired to attend law school, or an event in their life led to them wanting to go. So I think that's really important for our viewers to hear, that there's not one particular way that you feel like you need to get on if you want to go to law school. So our next question for the panel, for the different areas in which you all practice, did you always know that you wanted to practice in this area, or did you have a different idea when you were at law school? And can we start with Maya?
Okay, sure. I believe that initially when I was interested in law, I thought I wanted to be a prosecutor. And this was in high school and college. I interned at the prosecutor's office. And I knew that my heart wasn't in it. And I also felt emotionally it was draining on my mental, and I couldn't kind of take that every day. So my dad gave me one of the pieces of advice that I still kind of hold to this day, which is that the law is in everything. So find what you love and then find the law in that. So once I sat down and really thought about it, I realized that television and film was what I really was passionate about. So in college, I met with at that time, VP of Business and Legal Affairs at BET, and she allowed me to intern in their Business and Legal Affairs office in DC. And I went, and my first day of my internship, I literally cried walking home because I knew that that was exactly what I wanted to do. So I was fortunate enough to figure that out while I was in undergrad. So when I went to law school, I tailored all of my interests and things like that, organizations, networking events, to entertainment. So that's kind of how I stumbled across this.
That is such a similar path for me as well. I got an internship with Viacom as an undergrad and just knew that's what I wanted to do. So I appreciate you sharing that, because not a lot of people have that experience, but I think it's so important to intern. I say that a lot when I talk to students. Internships are so important, not only just for the experience, but the exposure to different areas of law, that you might want to practice in, and it's like a nice test run. So definitely intern if you can. Up next, we have Kelly, please.
So you asked why the practice area?
Yes.
Right. So I pretty much already answered that in the first question, but I want to say it still rings true that in order to, make positive changes in your community and in the criminal justice system, the best way to do so is, I believe, either by, becoming a prosecutor or being a judge or even a defense attorney. But as we all see, and we have all seen with Ahmaud Arbery, the George Floyd case, with even Amy Cooper, all of the cases that are currently, in, your new, or that are in the news, that are in your Facebook feeds, that everybody's talking about, those cases are all being motivated and driven by prosecutors. It is a prosecutor who has the ability to view evidence, to determine whether or not the facts of a case fit an actual statute. It is a prosecutor who determines whether or not a case should or should not go into a grand jury. It is a prosecutor who determines, whether or not the person should go to, well, a judge will at the end ultimately decide, but the prosecutor is the person who's putting everything together to determine whether or not someone should not go to jail, or whether or not somebody should receive some type of hefty sentence, whether or not it should be community service, whether or not it should be anger management or drug treatment. When you see someone, you might see a person who, every day we see this. I'm looking at a case that comes in and I see, okay, this person did, whatever. Let's say they did an assault and they committed an assault. And I'm saying, okay, what's the record? And then you're looking through the rap sheet to see what their record is. And you're saying, oh, a lot of petty theft. There's a lot of burglaries, things of that nature. So then you say, maybe this person might have a drug problem. Maybe this person, had a rough life, a rough start, and has never been able to overcome that. So then that's when you start looking into their history and their background, and you say to yourself, maybe this person, could benefit from drug treatment. Maybe this person could benefit from probation supervision or something of that nature. And who makes that determination? You know what I mean? It's the prosecution who really has people's lives in their hands. So I want to stress to you, students who are considering, going to law school, that being a Black prosecutor is not a way for someone to be, quote unquote, a sellout. It's a way for you to help your community more so than anything. At this time, Black prosecutors, I'm going to say, let me be clear. Conscientious Black prosecutors are needed more now than ever. So for me, that's what it's about. It's about making sure that justice is served on both ends, that the victims in our cases are also heard. A lot of times our victims are people who look just like us in communities where we all live. And we have to protect our communities as well from violence and things of that nature. So I would agree with, I think it was you, Danielle, who said interning is very important. I tell people the same thing. If you don't know what you do want to do, you definitely should find out what it is that you don't want to do. So that you can be like Maya and say, hey, I don't want to do this because I'll be unhappy. And then she figured that out early on. Just like I figured out early on that I wanted to be in the criminal arena. I thought I was going to be a criminal defense attorney when I was an undergrad. But it was my first internship where I realized something there that I saw wasn't necessarily something that I would have done had I been in charge. And so therefore I was like, okay, this lady here, she just did what she just did, but she had the power not to do that. And so that's when I realized that we're needed. Our faces are needed in that courtroom. And not just our faces, our experiences. There are people who, listening to facts of a case or listening to, we listen to jail calls, for example, and then you might say, that doesn't make sense. Or you might know what they're talking about because of, the culture that some people might not actually understand. So I think that it's really important for us to just be there on the front lines. And that's just the way to really make an impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, just to reiterate the power of internships. You could get into an internship and you can totally change your mind about what you want to do, or it could solidify, what you think you want to do. And you're able to make some really great connections along the way. Lauren, if you could share with us.
Sure. And I think this is a really interesting question to follow your first one, because it's one thing to decide you want to go to law school, then it's a whole other thing to decide what kind of law you want to practice. So I went to law school. I thought I wanted to be a sports attorney. I've always played sports. I love sports. And I thought I wanted to be in that arena. And then I started going to different sports attorney events and networking. And I realized it just wasn't the area that I wanted to be in. Now, luckily through that area, I was exposed to intellectual property law, which is what I eventually ended up practicing because it is what I felt passionate about, individuals and businesses that have these creations and ideas and for them to have ownership of them. And I'll also stress that even once you figure out what it is that you want to do, it doesn't always mean that when you get out into the real world that you may fall directly into that path. It took me about 6 years out of law school before I had a job that was solely focused in trademark law that I absolutely loved. So I did get there eventually, but sometimes you have to go through the motions in the working world as well to figure out exactly what specific lane you want to be in.
And I think that's a really important point that you shared, because oftentimes, you know, in law school, we take the classes, we do the internships, we do the clinics, and it's in a particular area in which we want to practice. But law school doesn't always tell you, you know, alternatives to start with if you're not able to start in the area in which you're interested. And I think, you know, for some, we're able to just start right into our career fields that we have been planning on. And for others, it takes a pit stop. I know for me, I was a law clerk for 6 months prior to becoming in-house counsel in entertainment. And so I just think that having an open mind to know that you're getting good experience, you're able to have those transferable skills, but keep hustling until you're able to get to, you know, the practice area in which you want to practice. So I think that's really important. Erin, if you could share with us if you always wanted to practice in this area.
So whereas Kelly and Maya had their life figured out since 1L year, I did not. So if you're in law school and you have no idea what you want to do, don't feel bad. Did I know I always wanted to practice in this area of law? Absolutely not. I went to law school thinking that I would be a criminal defense attorney, right? Because I thought that this is how I was going to help the community. I want to make sure people's rights aren't getting violated, either criminal defense, or I thought I would work in child welfare. That's what I did before law school. I was a paralegal in orphans court. That's what I'm doing. I went to North Carolina Central. It's a public interest law school. Perfect. I got there. That idea went out the window. And then I kind of went back to my performing arts roots. I was a dancer and an actor growing up. All my friends, for the most part, were in the entertainment field. So, okay, let's go with that. I love IP stuff, entertainment, great. President of the Sports Entertainment Law Society. I spent my 3L summer in LA making those connections. I'm going to take the California bar. I'm going to move out there and I'm going to do this. 3L year, I get a job offer from the government in the tax division. Absolutely did not plan that. You couldn't have paid me enough for me to think I was going to be in the tax division. But I will say that even though substantively I had no idea that I would be doing tax and bankruptcy, it was a litigation job. And so I did know that I wanted to be in a courtroom. So in that regard, I would say yes. Definitely not in the tax area or bankruptcy. And I didn't think that it would be civil litigation. Like I thought I would be on the criminal side. And even now, I tried it. I didn't necessarily like it. I think somebody mentioned about like, it's okay to change path or it's going to take you some time. I didn't like it. And so after 4 years, I decided that it's time for me to do something else. And so now I am going to be working with small businesses and some IP. And so now I have the opportunity with this firm to pretty much do whatever I want. So now I have the opportunity to test different areas, to try different cases, to see what I do like, what I don't like, and kind of go from there. So absolutely not.
And I think, again, just to reiterate, that's so important, because a lot of questions that we get from our students, is it okay if I don't know what I want to do right now? It's absolutely fine. And sometimes law school is that investigative, tool that we can use through classes, through clinics, or it's an internship, or it's just a conversation with an attorney that you meet. So I'm hoping that, at least someone on this call who's listening, can feel that they can identify with that and, not feel bad if they don't know. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do, or you could change your mind. Both things are absolutely fine. So my next question is for Maya. Maya, you, similar to me, are in the entertainment industry, and a lot of our viewers, a lot of our students are interested in finding out just how to make it in the industry, how to start out. And I know you're at a law firm. So if you could share with the viewers any tips on how to break into the industry.
I would say my biggest piece of advice would be to network. And often one of the biggest pieces of advice that I got early on was the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. So I was blessed with that definition quite early and identified a mentor. The individual, the lady who helped me get my first internship at BET, and she turned into my sponsor, who now advocates for me in various different ways. So if you don't know the difference, and mentor is somebody who advises you, that can be personal or career, and a sponsor is a person who kind of advocates for you when you're not in the room and can help elevate you to different positions. A mentor can do the same as well. So sometimes they cross paths. For me, I joined organizations that were geared towards sports and entertainment, specifically BESLA, which is a Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association. I volunteered for their annual conference. My 2L and 3L year in law school, I volunteered for their mid-year as well, and used that space to network with the board members who all have become like aunties and uncles for me. So I feel like breaking into specifically entertainment has a lot to do with your network. So do coffees with people. This is a great opportunity to network and reach out to people on LinkedIn that you might never have access to because you're not in their state. And just reach out, make those connections early on, follow up in an industry that's so fast paced. I know it seems like people don't respond and get back to you, but if you keep keep emailing them and keep trying, they will get back to you. So really make sure that you're networking. And my tip is that if you're not reaching out to one person a week, then that's not networking. The once a week is the network. So try to do that.
Thank you so much for that, Maya. I got similar advice when I was trying to start out as well. I tell students all the time about the power of LinkedIn, which is how I met some of you today. I think LinkedIn is so helpful, especially for students, because you're able to look up, attorneys who are doing what you want to do. And I found in my experience, most times attorneys are happy to chat with students, whether they're in law school, whether they're in college, because they know just how difficult it is to have that level of communication and that advice, especially as a minority trying to break into the profession. So this next question is for Kelly. With all that's going on, right now in, this country, let alone the world, but in our profession, as it's only 5% African-American attorneys across the United States, which is absurd. Considering all of who we represent. Kelly, you're in the criminal law field. If you could share with the...
Repeat that, Danielle. I think you were a little bit.
Oh, okay. If you could share a little bit with the audience, any pressures or any, influence that you feel as, an African-American prosecutor with all that's going on right now in our society.
Any pressures that I feel?
Yes, as a minority prosecutor.
I'll say that I'm one of the lucky ones because I'm in a very progressive, probably the most progressive district attorney's office in the country. I work for the Brooklyn district attorney, who has already, even before the George Floyd case, had already enacted a program called Justice 2020, where incarceration has always been the very last result. You know what I mean? Like, so violence, extreme violence, things of that nature. We're talking shootings, homicides, things of that nature. Those cases are different. So but he's already had, he's already the first office in New York to say we're not prosecuting individuals who, are arrested for marijuana cases. He's started a conviction review unit where, over, I think, 25 cases have been reviewed and reversed. We have all types of programs for people who, who do have substance abuse problems and things of that nature. So starting from there, I'm already in a better position, I think, than a lot of people who are assistant district attorneys in other offices in other states, even in this state. I'm also the head of the Hate Crimes Bureau. So I also feel that my daily work is something that is extremely impactful, in that, a hate crime being committed against one person is not a crime against just one person, it's a crime against a community. Because, it's, what you look like, it's who you love, it's the color of your skin, it's your religion, it's who you worship, it's, your sexual orientation, things of that nature. So these are things that are the very fabric of who a person is. It goes to the heart of America, of the city. So with that, I have to be very careful and conscientious about every decision that I make. As far as being a prosecutor in the day and age of, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, it's not new. These are things that have been happening all along. And as you said in my bio, I was actually acting chief for almost 2 years of the Bureau, who prosecuted police officers engaged in the line of duty who committed acts of excessive force, stealing things during search warrants, beating people up during an arrest, all types of things that were considered crimes. And I think that we were able to successfully prosecute and indict more officers than any other office that I know of at that time. But I think that there is no pressure if you believe that you have, and you've always believed that you have a responsibility to always do the right thing as prosecutors. A prosecutor's job is to seek justice, no matter what that justice looks like. That means that if the justice looks like, okay, this case needs to be dismissed before it even walks in the door, we're not even entertaining this case, we're going to decline to prosecute it. If this case should be prosecuted and this person deserves 25 to life because they just shot and killed a child, then that's what justice looks like. Because you're always hoping that you're doing the right thing. And because I'm a supervisor, that's also my goal in teaching the people who work for me. I always tell them, pretend you're the defense attorney, you know what I mean? And, what would you say about this person? Who are they as a human being? What about this case? What are the mitigating factors? What are the factors that, you don't see within the four corners of this file? So I think that the pressures are, you're going to get pressures from your family when you go home for Thanksgiving. That's always going to be the case. Oh, you're a prosecutor, blah, blah, blah. But you should be able to sleep at night if you know you're doing the right thing. If you know that, you're not prosecuting innocent people. If you have, and there's no, and I always say this, there's never a rush, right? There's no rush, because you rather, and I tell people all the time, you rather do it slow and do it right than do it fast and do it wrong. So investigation, the ability to investigate cases is there for a reason. You always want to make sure that you take the time to investigate cases, because, and it was funny because the other night I was just talking to my family and I was telling them, I said, we were talking about some case, because my brother-in-law is a first grade detective. And we were talking about, we're always talking about cases that we used to work on and things like that. And I said, at sentencing, I always tear up. I always cry. It doesn't matter if it's even my sentence or someone else's. I get teary-eyed because it's and everybody's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, because even if the person deserves to go away for as long as they're going away for, it's still two families usually who are, broken and disrupted. There's children who won't have their father in their lives every day. These are things that the conscientious prosecutor thinks about all the time. It's not just about, oh, he did this, boom, let's give him this. The statute says, he should get 5 to 25, let's give him whatever. That's not what we do, at least not in my office. And unlike other offices, we do have a lot of diversity, I would say, more so than probably other offices. I'm a Black bureau chief, and there are not a lot, but there are a good number of Black bureau chiefs who are also my friends, who also, have the task of making very hard decisions every day. And it's tough. It's tough being a prosecutor because it's not about money. It's not about whether or not somebody's going to make money or somebody's going to lose money on this deal or whatever. These are people's lives that we're talking about. So that's the daily pressure that you have day in and day out, regardless of what's going on in the world. But if you're doing the right thing every single day when you wake up, you can go to you can lay down knowing that, you know, everything's going to be okay.
That was fantastic. I think about prosecutors often, in times like this, especially Black prosecutors, because a lot of times when we see these cases on the news, we don't see a lot of Black prosecutors trying these cases. And I think sometimes with just a visual, as we all know, as minority attorneys, representation is important. Not seeing those minority prosecutors trying these big cases can sometimes lead to a level of helplessness and hopelessness within our community, because we don't see anyone's fighting for us. We don't see us on the front line. So I think it's very important that we have really great representation across the board. So the next question that I have is for the panel, and this is probably my favorite question for tonight. In my experience, even in early on as I am in my career, I found that because there are not a lot of African-American attorneys in any, field across the legal profession, that often when I do come in contact with them, they are a member of a Divine Nine organization. And once you identify that, whether, I know I've been identified, I've not had on any para, but I'll have on my pearls, and I have my necklace, I have my bracelet on there, like, are you okay? So I think it just is such a sense of support, a sense of community, once you find that in your space, your industry, your office. And I wanted to find out from each of the panelists, if you've had that moment in your career where you see another minority attorney and they're a part of a D9 organization. Did you have that experience? And what was that experience like for you during that process? And if we could start with Lauren.
Sure. So I have a very specific story. I, at one point, worked as a trademark examining attorney at the USPTO, as you stated. I interviewed there once, and I was not given an offer. And so what I decided to do was move from New York to DC in order to get my LLM and also to get more experience in intellectual property and trademark law. And one of the women that was at the office who I had been networking with was a soror of mine. And I kept in touch with her. When I moved to DC, I told her about my interest in wanting to get some more experience in intellectual property law. And she connected me with another soror who had her own practice. And so after starting my LLM program, I was able to intern in that soror's office until the next time that the USPTO was hiring. And so when I got to the interview, I was able to speak to that experience that I had gained, and I ultimately got the job offer that time. So that was just a very specific instance how my connections were instant and I was able to get opportunities presented to me.
I think that's fantastic. I think that is a great way to network within, starting out in your career. If you're, whether you're active, whether you're not, when you meet a soror, in your organization, they're going to look out most of the time and they're excited to see you in that space. And I think that is a really great example of, not only just networking, but keeping in touch once you make those connections. That's very, very important to growing your network and a step that is important to creating those long-lasting relationships. Erin, if you could share next.
So my example was not from since I've been practicing, but in law school. When I went to North Carolina, I didn't know anyone that had gone to Central. I don't even know if I knew anyone in the state of North Carolina. And I think it was the last day of orientation 1L year. And I got a text message from a soror back in Philly that I knew very well. And it said, there are 2 sorors waiting at the door for you. So, and they both had gone to Central. And so they became that resource for me. Obviously, they did what I was trying to do. They took me to dinner. They made sure I was good. They introduced me to, other sorors who became friends since I was so far from home. I was able to spend Founders Day with them and just really became welcoming and that resource, because otherwise it would have been just me.
I think that's fantastic. And I share a similar experience with you of going to North Carolina and not knowing anyone and you know, looking for that community base. And I remember with my team member Alicia, she and I would go and visit chapter meetings just to find, you know, that source of sisterhood, and that's so important, especially when you're starting off in a new area. Maya, if you could share with us.
Sorry, was that me? You broke
Yeah.
up. Okay.
Oh yeah, Maya.
No problem. So for me, I agree with Aaron. I feel that, and Lauren, I feel that my sorority sisters have been a huge connection for me, whether it's networking me or connecting me with various other sorors. But for me, the strongest connection has definitely been through law school. At Howard, specifically, each sorority and fraternity are really close. And we look out for each other, whether it's books, whether it's meals on Founders Day. And for me, I don't think I would have been able to go through law school without those girls and really all of the D9 sororities who all looked out for each other. So that support system was very important then. And those are the same girls I continue to reach out to now and really support me in all that I do.
Thanks so much for that. And we'll wrap up quickly with Kelly, if you could share with us any sorority connections that have impacted you and your career.
Well, there are a lot of members of Alpha Kappa Alpha who work with me and around me, and so I will say that it's always been, you know, very pleasurable to have that connection. Recently, I was able to interview our soror, Sunny Hostin, at a Black History Month event. And the only reason why I was really, you know, given that opportunity is because the person who, you know, knew her and, you know, got her to come to the office to do our program was one of our sorors. So that was, and I probably, you know, would not have been chosen to do that had I not been her soror. But I will say that more importantly than the opportunities that have come my way, the sorors have been very important in holding me up. It has not been an easy journey for me. I feel like you talk about microaggressions in the courtroom that are happening on a daily basis, and there are just people who don't always understand that. It's just good to be able to get on a group me with sorors, with other, with sorors who are in my chapter now, who are judges, who I can just call and text and say, listen, this happened and I just need to vent. It's very important to be able to have a circle of people. You have your sponsor, you have your mentor, but it's also important to have people, who you can just, say, I can't believe just did this, or he said this to me, or he asked me, was I the paralegal, or he asked me, was I the intern, or whatever, or he asked, the person who I'm supervising in court, who's 1 year out of law school, whether or not he agrees with my decision, things of that nature. These are things that you need support just to deal with on an everyday basis, because it gets hard. It does. It gets hard to, although you love your job, you love what you do, you're there for a purpose, it's hard sometimes to just, be in your skin and be a woman on top of it, and have to deal with, things that you should just not have to deal with. You just should not have to deal with, and that another colleague of yours would not have to deal with those issues. So when I'm telling you that, members of my sorority have held me up to the point where, I can go back and forth all day with them, about something that happens. And the thing is, we all experience, whether you're an attorney, whether you're an engineer or in business or an entrepreneur, we're all dealing with the same microaggressions and the same attacks on a daily basis. So it's just important that we're able to support one another through it all. I think I don't even know where I would be had it not been for the ability to just chat with people about experiences that happened every single day.
Absolutely. And it's so important to have that community, as a minority in this profession, as you stated, we go through a lot that our counterparts do not experience on a day-to-day, whether that's the microaggressions, maybe that's, getting comments about our appearance or, being double checked by someone else. Those are things that our counterparts can identify with. And it's nice to have a support, in the office or outside the office to where you can vent or you can seek advice on how to handle those things. I know I personally have myself.
Yeah, I actually had a judge when he told us to approach the bench, and he's, having a conversation about law for his grandson with the defense attorney who looked just like him. And then we're talking about, discovery, meaning we're talking about what to hand over to the defense attorney. And the judge just started screaming on me and said, get back from my bench. And I was just like stunned because I couldn't believe that, first of all, he was screaming at me in front of everybody in the courtroom. And he's just, and I'm like, I'm just standing there, and he's like, you heard what I said, get back. And I'm like, okay. And so I turned around, I went back to my table. Defense attorney, and they yucked it up for another, what felt like a minute, but it probably was just maybe 5 seconds or so. And I went back to my table, and as I'm walking back, the judges have microphones at their desks or at their bench, and he said, that girl, she's a pain in my ass. Right? And I said, so I was stunned. Like I was stunned. And I said, so I actually said, excuse me?
Wow.
And he said, you heard what I said. You heard exactly what I said. I said, did you just say that I was a pain in your ass? And he said, you heard what I said. You can go back and tell anybody that that's what I said to you. There's a defendant in the back row who's like, yeah, he said it. I heard him. And but this is the type of thing, like, where you're just like, stand strong. You know who you are. You know who you were raised to be. Don't let them see you get upset. And I literally walked out of the courtroom, went to my office, and I just broke down, right? Because who has that type of thing happen to them? I mean, it's a courtroom filled with people. I'm a professional. I passed the same bar exam that you. I have a law degree just like you, and you're talking to me like this for what reason? It was really no reason. And when I get back to the office and I'm sharing what happened with my colleagues, not the colleagues that look like me, the response was, what did you do to him? I'm like, are you kidding me? So this is when you need your network of Black women, whether they're AKAs, they're Deltas, they're Zetas, they're SG Rhos, or they're just, Black women in the struggle. We need each other because of things like that. Because who can then say, I'm going to get back up tomorrow, the next day, and go back to work or go back into his courtroom, knowing that you're dealing with those types of, that felt like more of a macroaggression than a microaggression. You know what I mean? Because it was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we're all, we're dealing with. That was an extreme case, but I mean, I'll never forget it. And let me tell you, it wasn't that long ago. It was not that long ago.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Kelly. I think this provides, such a real experiential, description of what could happen, in any environment. Yours was in the courtroom, someone else's could be in the boardroom. And, how do you deal with that but remain professional so that you're not the angry Black woman in the room or in the office? And, it's a struggle. It is a struggle to have that, but also be sensitive to yourself and, acknowledging those emotions. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kirsten, who has some audience questions for our panelists.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kirsten Evans. I'm on the Pursuing Esquire team, and I'm also a proud member of Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I would like to thank all the panelists for their time today, and I also want to apologize in advance if we cannot get to all of the participant questions, but I do thank you all for your attention and asking your questions. So the first question that we have is for any of the panelists, whoever feels compelled to answer. For those who are in their second year of law school and lost the opportunity to intern or attend networking events because of COVID-19, how should we go about gaining experience, or any advice trying to get the necessary experience during this pandemic?
I can speak to that a little bit. I would suggest, even though you can't go for in-person coffee or things like that, or maybe your internship might have canceled because of, or this past summer because of COVID, I suggest reaching out to a lot of people on LinkedIn. I know that I personally do at least 2 calls with law students, people interested in law, a week, and I dedicated that kind of like during this time to make sure that I do that. So you can always reach out to people that way, or do Zoom calls. I know we do a lot of Zooms now. Do Zoom calls with people, and use kind of what we have at this time the best you can. And people are quite understanding to that.
I would say, on top of what Maya said, if there's any bar associations that allow law students to join, any organization where you can get specialized information maybe about the particular area that you're in, or for example, there's the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, if that's just a more general that you would want to look into. And you can also read up on certain parts of the law. If you know what you're interested in and you want to show that you have an interest in it, you can read cases, you can read hot topics, you can present articles on those or share on your calls. You know, if you've read about a recent case, maybe ask a question about it. So there's definitely a lot to do at this time, even though it is difficult.
I would say that one of the most important things that you're going to need when you are applying to positions in your, you said, did you say rising 3Ls or rising 1Ls?
Rising 3Ls.
Right. I'm sorry, not 1Ls. So what you're going to need is a writing sample. And I would suggest that you contact attorneys that you know, and ask them, is there an issue that they have that you could write on? Because everybody has issues, right? And everybody has something that they could use some help with, especially during a time of, COVID and, people being sick and things of that nature. So they might let you have a stab at, writing on an issue, just so that you can have a writing sample. Because I couldn't imagine, going into my 3rd year of law school, applying for jobs in the fall without a decent writing sample. So you should attempt to get one of those while you're home this summer.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. I know it's a very challenging time right now and things have changed, but it's good to know that we still have resources that we can call on during this time. The next question we have is for Erin. What advice would you give to someone who is not ranked high in their section? Is GPA and rank important once you graduate and pass the bar?
So, even though I graduated at the top of my class, I went to a 4th tier law school. So I won't say it didn't matter, but there was definitely still a difference. And I'll make this quick. I can remember like when I was in LA for the summer, and we would be at networking events and there would be judges there and I would be talking to a judge, but then somebody walks up and they went to Harvard just like them. They went to Yale just like them. And then literally I would be out of the conversation. No more eye contact, no more conversation with me. They're completely talking to each other. So what I had to do is I had to network. I also knew that after my first week of law school that I didn't want to stay in North Carolina. And so obviously most of the opportunities that the school is going to have is going to be in North Carolina, but I didn't want that. And so I was the networking queen. They talk about asking for coffee. I probably was going to lunch 2-3 times a week, and they pick good restaurants for you to go to. So I would have a draft email, and I would just change it. I'm interested in learning more about what you do. Can you help me? Find people that does even if you're not sure, if you think you may be interested in that, reach out to them. There is one quote that Judge Birdsong, he's out in LA, said that I will never forget. And he said that it's not about what you know. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. Because you can feel like you know Beyonce, but she doesn't know you. So it's very important to make sure that you are finding these mentors and forming these relationships before you need a job, because the relationship needs to be genuine. A lot of times, at least the Black legal community is very small, and a lot of times jobs don't get posted. And so if if a firm has a job opening that's not getting posted and you just have to know somebody that's in there, that's when you need your sponsors to root for you when you're not even in the room or you're not even thought of. So it is definitely possible to do it if you're not at the top of your class. I personally, I really don't even like that whole, oh, I graduated this, but I could write you a brief better than you like 10,000 times with my 4th tier law degree. We take the same bar, we have the same license. I really think it's really about your skills. If you feel like you are not going to be at the top of the class, I would say you need to work on your internships. For me, I think internships are more important than grades. I know so many people get hung up, oh, I got to study, I got to study, I got to study. But then you graduate, even if you graduate the top of your class and you have no experience, it's still going to be hard. I think that the reason I was able to get to the government, which is extremely hard to do, is because I had 4 clerkships with court appellate judges. So I had the writing samples that Kelly was just talking about. So I had, the in-court experience. I interned at the DA's office and with a criminal defense attorney and an entertainment lawyer and 3 judges. So I really stress the importance of experience, maybe over grades. I'm not saying don't study, do what you can, but if you had to focus your energy or you're not going to make that top 10, top 20%, I would say focus your energy on internships. And another good way to do it, Lauren was talking about bar organizations. I think most bar organizations allow you to join as a law student. I know if you are in the DC area, the Washington Bar Association, we would love to have you. We do stuff for law students all the time and nobody shows up. And so we had a whole panel full of judges and I think 3 law students showed up. And guess how many of them walked out of there with a summer job? All 3 of them, because there were only 3 there. So definitely if you're in the DC area, you can find me on LinkedIn. I will make sure that you are connected. There are resources out here for you. I'm trying to think, I know we're over time. I would say just get the experience and your mentors and just start now. Don't wait till you need something.
Thank you so much.
Can I add to that? If you do an internship, you have to thrive in the internship. You absolutely positively have to set yourself apart from the other interns. I can't even tell you the amount of interns that we have that come in and, they think they got the job already, or, they're, not taking it seriously, not taking the, we want to know that you're going to be a shining star of an employee if you get this job. There are, at least in my office, I think we have like 60 interns a year, and so there's going to be a lot of competition because we have over 2,000 applications that we review for 60 slots every year. So if you're going to be an intern, the one thing that you do have is the leg up in that you don't have to. There's four rounds of interviews. But the one thing that, the internship does is set you apart is that you don't have to do the first round because you've already now interned for a whole summer. But if your evaluation and the people that you work for are saying, you're going to skip the first round of interviews, but just because you have an internship somewhere doesn't mean that you're going to get the job. So I would say that you definitely have to set yourself apart while you're there. Dress the part. If you know that you want to be, at an entertainment law firm and they're dressing a certain way, I'm not saying as a law student you will have money to dress like they do, or dress like a whomever or whatever office that you're working in. But you need to be professional. You need to be on time. You need to be willing to stay late, and you need to be seen so that they know that this person really wants this job.
Thank you so much. That advice is very reassuring. The last question that we have is very quick. It's for Kelly, but it's an important question given this time in history. So because of underfunding and various social economic factors in various public defenders' offices, how do Black defendants who may not be able to afford private counsel, how do they avoid getting ineffective counsel and other unfair biases?
I mean, unfortunately, that's, this is what we are dealing with in our justice system, is that, there are, like, for example, in New York, you have if I'm talking about what we have in Brooklyn, we have the Brooklyn Defender Services, we have the Legal Aid Society. We also have what's called 18B. 18B attorneys are attorneys who are in private practice, but they do take cases at a certain rate from the city in order to take those cases. So you do have the good, I would say, I don't want to say the good attorneys. And the reason why I don't want to say good attorneys is because you do not even realize the level of fight that the legal aid attorneys or the Brooklyn Defender Services, they put into their clients. They're really fighting for their clients from what I can see. But I do understand that people feel like a public defender is not as good as a private paid attorney. And unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that, because that's the way the justice system is at this time. And people, with money do happen to come up with attorneys who, some people wish they could afford. But unfortunately, that's just the way the system is at this point. It's unfortunate. But that goes back to prosecutors. That's why we need good prosecutors. So therefore, regardless of who your attorney is, right? Justice can be served, and what's fair, like you're not going to get, like, if I'm behind the table, I can tell you that there's not going to be false evidence. There's not going to be, you're going to have all the evidence that we have in front of you. And it's going to be, it's going to be a fair trial. So that is at, the very least. And I can't stress it enough. I know I've said it 15 times during the Zoom call. If you're interested in criminal law, please consider becoming a prosecutor, because that is where change happens.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your responses. I apologize if we didn't get to all the questions, but we are over time and we want to respect everyone's evening. So I'm going to turn it back over to Danielle.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. And thank you again to everyone for viewing tonight, our D9 Sisters-in-Law panel. Thank you to our panelists for your time, your wisdom, your advice. We so enjoyed having you, seeing you in your sorority's colors. As if you look at our viewers, they are proudly wearing their para. If you are a member, feel free to drop in the chat, who you're repping tonight. As we just support such sisterhood within our profession, but just as professional women. And as you can see, all of our panelists have had moments in their careers where sisterhood is so important. So we encourage you to build that sisterhood, whether or not you're in a sorority or not, but just to build that community for yourself, because you'll need it in this career. Again, thank you so much to our panelists. Please tune in next week. We will have our D9 fraternity panel, where we will have members from all the Divine Nine fraternities come and share with us as well. Again, thank you so much. I know we went over time today. We just had so much knowledge and advice, and I hope that everyone enjoyed it and has received something from tonight. Please share about our program. We are serving aspiring minority lawyers through mentorship and access. Check us out on Instagram at Pursuing ESQ, or our website at www.pursuingtheesquire.com. Thank you again so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.